Hi everyone. So I'm here, unsurprisingly, to talk about young people. More specifically, how we win the hearts and minds of a generation that expect everything. That's a really, really big question that undoubtedly many in the room, many politicians, I'm sure plenty of parents would love to know an answer to. And for me, to take on a question of such magnitude, you have to consider two things. First and foremost, what does it truly mean to make people think and feel? And that's a question that all marketeers should ask themselves. And secondly, how has the environment today impacted the people that have grown up within it? And I want to start by talking about thinking and feeling. It's not as complicated as it sounds. The way we feel often dictates how we think. And this comes down to simple neurology. Our brain is split into three parts. We have the primitive brain, the part of the brain that really wants to keep me alive. We have the limbic system, that's the emotional part of the brain. That's the part of the brain that makes me love and hate and everything in between. And then we have the rational part of the brain, the neocortex. That's the part of the brain that processes intellectual tasks. And because we have a rational part of our brain, we should be rational purchasers, we should be rational thinkers. Well, as the gentleman on the screen illustrates, we are not always rational thinkers. And again, this comes down to simple neuroscience. That's because the emotional part of our brain processes information 5 times quicker than the rational part. And when we look at young people, the rational part of the brain is still in development up to the age of 25, which often means logical reasoning is ignored. It's actually a very similar neurological response to what drunk adults have. So yes, I'm saying young people and drunk adults are probably more emotional than the rest of us. And if the US president has taught us anything, tapping into emotions and making people feel is incredibly powerful. And when you look at the hierarchy of feelings, Robert Plutchik has many theories. And any guesses which the most powerful feeling that we can tap into as human beings? It's fear, tapping into fear. And marketeers and businesses and salespeople have used fear for generations to market to people, to sell things. You know, closing down sales, limited time offers. When we talk about youth marketing, we talk about FOMO, fear of missing out. But for me, fear probably isn't a sensible emotion to base your entire marketing strategies around. I like to think of things at the opposite end of the hierarchy, something equally as powerful. I think people should focus on making people happy. And although that's probably the most obvious thing you're going to hear today, I guarantee many in this room aren't putting their customers' happiness at the forefront of their decision making. And when you look at the grand topic of happiness, happiness is said to be found in 3 places: some form of pleasure, passion, or purpose. But again, for me, happiness is much simpler than that. Happiness is not about me chasing my grand purpose in life or, chasing hedonistic pleasure monkey needs. Happiness is about managing expectation. And I've just made a really exciting, invigorating topic sound really dull, but let me just illustrate that for you. Your expectations dictate how happy or unhappy you are with something. In its most basic form, if I came here today expecting the sun to shine, it'd be beautiful, and it rains, I'm going to be mildly unhappy. However, if the reverse happens, I expected it to rain, and the sun is shining, I'm going to be mildly happy. And when I go home and my girlfriend expects me to have cleaned the house and I haven't, I guarantee she's going to be really unhappy. However, if the unexpected happens and I clean the house, she's going to be pretty happy. And actually, beyond the trivial things in life, it's really important and it's incredibly powerful. In our careers, I work really hard. I expect a pay rise. I don't get one. I'm demotivated. I'm not the same employee. However, if the reverse happens, I get an unexpected pay rise, I'm really happy. And as a business, Social Chain employs a lot of young people. So we're consistently having to redefine what it means to manage young people's expectations. So whether it's our unlimited holiday policy, whether it's our yoga classes, our celebrations on a Friday, we are consistently trying to defy expectation. And in every illustration I have just talked about, it wasn't the factor that affected the outcome. It was our own expectations that made us happy or unhappy. So if everybody in this room can agree that making people happy is a pretty good starting place for marketeers, then making people happy should be at the forefront of all your decision making when you're working with people. And this is a real bugbear of mine. Remember, you're not marketing to ABC1s or mosaic profiles. You're marketing to people. And people are complex. Well, most people are complex. And when we look at young people expect a hell of a lot from brands today. Historically, 100 years ago, this used to be enough. I had a product, go buy it, people did. In the famous words of Henry Ford, you can have any car in any color as long as it's black. And over the course of history, marketeers and businesses and brands have had to get more sophisticated. They've had to really understand what it means to make people think and feel. And then we fast track to today in the digital age when there's so many choices. Now everybody wants it all. They want everything. They want to be communicated on their terms, when they want it, where they deem acceptable. And for me, in the middle of Game of Thrones or on a pop-up banner that I can't actually close in a mobile app, definitely isn't that place to communicate. So what is the answer? How do you communicate to young people today? Well, the key comes down to something simple again. It's about being authentic and communicating authentically. And that is an overused term in marketing, but it's certainly a necessary one. So when ASUS and Nike launched a visual search tool, they wanted to tell young people about it. And the visual search tool was really cool. I could take a picture of someone that I liked what they were wearing, I could upload it to the website, and that would then marry that up with something in the ASUS collection, and then also match it with a pair of Nike sneakers. Fantastic, really cool, innovative tool. So what's the authentic way to tell people about this innovation? Well, we know young people spend a lot of time on social media, between 2 and 5 hours, so naturally they want to communicate on social media. But when we look at expectations, people expect ASUS and Nike advertising to look like this. It's vibrant, it's colorful, it's cool, it's beautiful, it's aesthetically pleasing. But what do young people expect to see in their news feeds? Young people expect to see short-form content that makes them laugh, content that makes them happy, memes. Hence the rise of communities like ours. Student Problems has 7.2 million followers, grows 150,000 followers every single week. It does that because it communicates to young people authentically. So as you can see, these two worlds are vastly different. So in order to be authentic, we have to put the context in which the message first. And what does that mean? That means being social first. And social first is a term we use often. And social first isn't simply wrapping something in a meme bar and putting subtitles. Social first is about asking people, never asking people, to do something in social media that they don't ordinarily do. Don't ask them to watch things they wouldn't ordinarily watch. So in the context of this brief, we had to create content that's native to Student Problems. It was content that's native to the platform. We didn't reinvent the wheel. We didn't do anything revolutionary. We made meme bars. We had a hooky title that was enough to capture my attention. We went around universities and showed people the tool and captured their reactions. It was really human. It was honest. It was funny. And the reality is, it's not about ASUS and Nike telling people they have this innovative tool. It's about leveraging influential voices. It's about, people telling it in their own authentic way. So we replicated this across many of our communities, our sports communities, our fitness communities, and each of them had content that was right for them and specific to them. And you may argue that at times that's not very on brand, but you have a tone of voice. ASUS and Nike, when they speak, have to do something in a certain way. When Student Problems speaks about them, they can take more risks. Well, what's the result of them being brave creatively? It was the top performing piece of content last summer. The Student Problems video alone had 14 million people were reached, 8.5 million views, 7,000 shares, almost 50,000 reactions, and 167,000 people clicked a bit.ly link in a pinned comment attributable direct to the site to try it. And in the days where organic reach is dying, or many say dead, guess how much we spent on boosting that post? Not very much, because the content was authentic, it was right, and it was contextually relevant. And the moral of the story here is you have to change your brand story when the room changes. And what I mean by that, the story I tell today is different to how I tell my friends or how I tell my mom, but the story remains the same. And social media isn't any different. Social media shouldn't be an afterthought. You shouldn't just take an asset and place it on social media. That no longer works. You have to go social first. And then we factor in everything that we know about young people. Well, it makes advertising to them really, really hard. And everyone has a tough job in this room. And you have to look at the world through their eyes to understand that. Young people, as you know, are connected from birth. I wasn't connected from birth, but I had a mobile phone in my hand from 7 years old. I grew up through mass media negativity, financial crisis, terrorism, stress, all these things going off in the world. That is a lot of pressure for young people to put themselves under. And social media doesn't necessarily help. Social media adds a lot of pressure. If you think when a young person scrolls through their news feed, they are seeing the 0.1% of beauty. They are seeing the 0.1% of talent. And that's what's expected of them. That's a lot of pressure. It's actually so much pressure that 1 in 5 young people wake up in the middle of the night to check their phones out of anxiety. So a 24-hour connected world means a world with a hell of a lot of choices, lots of social platforms, lots of media choices, lots of brands to buy from. This is a fight for attention. You only have to look at what happens in an internet minute to know there's a lot going off. My favorite, there's almost 1 million Tinder swipes every single minute, so you're not alone if you're on Tinder right now. And you know what? That's a lot of decisions that the human has to process today, every minute of the day. And for a young person, that's a very noisy environment. So our job today is to capture attention through the noise. And if we go back to studies in 2000 said the average attention span was 12 seconds. Similar studies back in 2013 said the average attention span was 8 seconds. A goldfish has a 9-second attention span. And according to platform, you're very, very lucky to have me today for 3 seconds. I expect a hell of a lot if I give you 3 seconds of my time. So, why is this? Well, as a brand, when you're marketing in social media, you're not just competing with other brands. You're competing with life, and life can be complex. People have breakups, young people have schoolwork, they put themselves under pressure. So the first rule in being successful in marketing to young people socially is never falling into the dangerous trap of believing that anyone cares about you as much as you care about you. And in doing so, you're probably set up for success. So I've painted a really gloomy picture of what it is to be a young person today and how to market to young people. But this talk is about expectation. And it's had quite an unexpected outcome on the people that have grown up within it. Young people are so optimistic today. This mass media negativity that they've grown up in essentially means, yes, they've lost their innocence. They're skeptical towards brands. But instead of this having a negative impact, it's made them resilient, pragmatic. They confront problems, they're globally aware, they're ambitious. And social media, as much as it adds pressure, that's the driving force. Social media is their world of possibility. We say that Gen Z and Alpha are dreamers. You know, millennials were idealists. Everyone else has been beaten with a life stick, so they're realists. But you only have to look at young people, what they're saying, to understand this to be true. 67% of young people never use the word failure. 70% are positive they're going to get their dream career. You know, 66% of British youth expect next year to be better than the current year. And they're very, very ambitious. Well, do they have more ambition than most? Well, ambition isn't a unique characteristic of this generation. But history has proven that revolutions, change, innovation often starts with the young. But what social media has done is it's created an echo chamber that amplifies all our inherent behaviors. And it means that young people have a collective consciousness, and they are different today. It's created a generation that want different things. And if there's one thing that young people want above everything else, young people want to be happy. The majority of young people today say that happiness equals success. Happiness is the thing they value above all else. So I said happiness is a pretty good starting place if you want to market to young people. So I encourage more people in this room to make people happy and continue to do so in your marketing efforts. So when we work with brands like Superdry, we aim to make young people happy across all our digital comms. So when we develop a social-first strategy, whether that's us pushing out offers, we ensure that they are gamified, we ensure they are fit for purpose, they are contextually relevant on the platform. And when it comes to influencer marketing, people expect pretty people to wear clothes, but that doesn't bring value to anyone. So when we develop an influencer strategy for Superdry, we get talented, creative, interesting people to wear Superdry clothes and do interesting things. This brings value, and this makes Superdry a destination for young people. We work with people like Andrew Henderson, people like Nightscape. Nightscape has made a career out of breaking into buildings as an urban explorer. He's a stunning photographer. He does the most amazing product shots. You know, we do interesting things. We blow up cars on bonfire night and just get young people to engage. And what's the outcome? What's the outcome of a highly engaged social-first comm strategy? Well, according to this article, Superdry are doing well. And as a business, we started by simply defying expectation of what it is young people can achieve today. This is what people expect the world's largest publishers to look like. But this is also what the world's largest publishers look like. Young people that communicate authentically and amass millions and millions of followers. And in just 3 years, Stephen Bartlett and Dominic McGregor rounded up all the young people in the country who had an authentic voice in something that they were passionate about. And today, Social Chain is one of the world's leading social media agencies. We have 5 offices globally. We employ over 170 people. And our subsidiary Media Chain is one of the world's largest publishing houses. Something Media Chain produces reaches 1.2 billion people every single month. The Times said we're one of Britain's most influential companies. The Guardian said we are leading the way. The Huffington Post called us the Illuminati. But more importantly to us, it's what our clients say about us. In a recent article, Coca-Cola said that we are the agency they admire the most. Superdry say we push their social strategy faster and harder. Our average age is still just 22 in the business. I hope this talk has met your expectations, and thank you, and please get in touch.